When two legends of the game step up to the table with everything on the line, something magical happens. And what unfolded in Llandudno, Wales in March 2022 was more than just a match. It was a battle that had fans on the edge of their seats, commentators running out of superlatives, and even the players themselves admitting they'd just been part of something extraordinary. This was Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Williams, two giants of snooker from the legendary class of '92, trading blow after blow in what would become one of the most intense deciders the sport has ever witnessed. And honestly, the way this match played out still gives people chills. Let's set the scene properly here. The 2022 Tour Championship at Venue Cymru wasn't just any tournament. Only the top 8 players in the world get an invitation and make every single match a battle between the absolute best in the business. Ronnie O'Sullivan, the Rocket himself, was about to reclaim the world #1 spot for the 5th time in his career. At this stage, he was playing with a completely different mindset, treating tournaments like holidays and genuinely not caring whether he won or lost. But Mark Williams had other ideas. The Welsh Dragon was playing on home soil, with the crowd firmly behind him, and he was determined to make that advantage count. These two weren't strangers to each other's game. They had turned professional in the same year, back in 1992, had battled countless times over 3 decades, and knew each other's strengths and weaknesses inside out. Williams hadn't beaten O'Sullivan in a 2-session ranking match since the semi-finals of the 2000 UK Championship. That's over 2 decades of trying and failing to get past the Rocket when it really mattered. The pressure was immense from both sides. The opening frame set the tone for what was coming. It took a full 30 minutes to complete, with both players cautious and tense. Williams capitalised on some early mistakes from O'Sullivan to take the first frame, and the home crowd erupted. The Welshman could sense blood in the water. O'Sullivan looked nervous in the second frame too. He collected some quick points, but then missed a black that rattled the jaws of the pocket. But he fluffed his opportunity, and O'Sullivan managed to scrape a level at 1 frame each. That missed chance seemed to wake something up in O'Sullivan. A fabulous long pot of a red gave him the confidence boost he desperately needed, and he edged into the lead at 2 frames to 1. Then came the moment that reminded everyone why O'Sullivan is called the greatest player of all time. What happened in the 4th frame put any memories of his shaky start firmly in the past. O'Sullivan produced an absolutely dazzling exhibition of ball striking, moving around the table with the kind of grace and precision that makes the game look effortless. He compiled a stunning break of 131, the highest of the tournament so far, to lead 3 frames to 1 at the interval. Williams wasn't about to roll over, though. He bounced back in the 5th frame as O'Sullivan struggled with his potting, tightening the score to 3 frames to 2. But O'Sullivan responded immediately with his second century of the match, a sublime 128 break that gave him breathing space once more. The 7th frame turned into something quite breathless. O'Sullivan raced into a 50-point lead, with Williams handing over 16 of those points in fouls alone. The home crowd feared the worst, as the Rocket seemed to be pulling away. But a beautifully executed red gave Williams the chance to counterattack, and what followed was simply majestic. The Welshman produced a stunning clearance of 92 points to win the frame and bring himself back to within 1 at 4 frames to 3. Pattern was becoming clear. Every time O'Sullivan tried to pull away, Williams found a way to claw himself back into contention. O'Sullivan re-established his 2-frame lead just before the break, recovering from some poor positioning with his early shots to secure a break of 89 and take a 5 frames to 3 advantage into the evening session. If anyone thought the evening session would be calmer, they were about to be proven spectacularly wrong. Williams came out after the interval like a man possessed. He took advantage of an early O'Sullivan error to go on a run of 103, moving back to within a single frame. Here's something everyone who follows snooker knows about Ronnie O'Sullivan. The moment you get him up against the ropes, the moment he feels any hint of pressure, he finds another level that most players don't ever know exists. And that's exactly what happened in the 10th frame. O'Sullivan found some of the best angles anyone had seen him cue in a while. He moved around the table with devastating precision, compiling a century break of exactly 100 to restore his 2-frame cushion. The next section of the match probably needs little explanation, because a clear pattern was forming. Williams fought like a warrior to close the gap to 6 frames to 5. O'Sullivan came steaming back with elegance around the table to make a break of 75 and widen the gap once more to 7 frames to 5. The quality on display was extraordinary. Both players were producing their absolute best snooker, and the tenacity they showed was setting up a fine race for the finish line. At 7 frames to 5 down, Williams knew that any mistakes would see O'Sullivan seize the opportunity and sail off into victory. Making things difficult for himself with poor positioning was definitely not in the game plan. However, as seen so often already in this clash, Williams found a way out of tricky situations to take the 13th frame and once again reel his opponent back to within 1 at 7 frames to 6. This is where things got really interesting. Williams had not won 2 straight frames all day. Every time he'd won a frame, O'Sullivan had responded immediately. But in the 14th frame, a double kiss from O'Sullivan gave Williams the chance he needed to close out the frame. He accepted the opportunity with both hands, drawing the match completely level at 7 frames each. The momentum had completely shifted. The crowd could feel it, the commentators could feel it, and both players definitely felt it. Williams sought to make his momentum count as he took the table to split the pack of reds. But then disaster struck. He saw the pink ball drop into the pocket accidentally, giving O'Sullivan the chance to step up and punish him. The Rocket didn't need a second invitation. He scored another century break, his 4th of the match, to regain the lead at 8 frames to 7. But Williams fought straight back, with incredible calmness, showing the mental strength that had made him a 3-time world champion. He levelled the match at 8 frames each, taking the contest to a best-of-3 shootout. The pressure at this point was absolutely suffocating. Neil Robertson was waiting in the semi-finals for whoever won this match. Both players had vast experience and knew exactly how one miscue could give their opponents the edge they needed to reach 10 frames. Some players would have played tentatively at this point, trying not to make mistakes rather than trying to win frames. But O'Sullivan and Williams are not those kinds of players. O'Sullivan smashed out a quite magnificent break of 127 in the 17th frame, his 5th century of the match, to move within 1 frame of victory at 9 frames to 8. Think about that for a moment. 5 centuries in a single match, with the pressure at its absolute peak, and O'Sullivan was still producing magical snooker. But Williams wasn't done yet, not even close. In what perfectly reflected the way the entire match had played out, Williams held his nerve to fight back yet again. He levelled the score at 9 frames each, forcing a deciding frame that had everyone in the arena holding their breath. Neither man was prepared to surrender, but equally, neither could see the other off. Another tight battle was about to begin in the final frame. The tension in the arena was unbearable. One mistake, one missed pot, one bad piece of positional play could decide who moved forward and who went home. Then Williams, who had barely missed a long pot all day, uncharacteristically missed a long red. O'Sullivan stepped up to the table, knowing this was his chance. He produced some sensational potting to take control of the frame, and when the final ball dropped, he'd won the match 10 frames to 9. The quality of what everyone had just witnessed was immediately recognised. The media called it a classic, an epic, a thriller. Every superlative seemed appropriate for what had unfolded over those 2 sessions. O'Sullivan's own words after the match summed it up perfectly. He said it was probably the best Williams had ever played against him, and the best he'd ever played against Williams. For 2 legends who'd faced each other hundreds of times over 30 years, that statement carried serious weight. So what made this decider so emotional? It was the combination of everything. 2 legends from the same generation, battling it out on the biggest stages 3 decades after turning professional. The quality of snooker on display, with both players producing some of the best frames of their careers. And for those who were lucky enough to watch it live, they knew they just witnessed one of the most emotional deciders in snooker history. So what do you think? Was this the greatest decider ever played? And could we ever see another match between these two legends that matches this level of drama? That's a wrap on today's video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And for more snooker content, click the screen below.